these last 3 episodes, 9 through 12 or 10 through 12, they had a tall task because I thought the best 3 episodes this season were 7 through 9 or whatever, 8 through 10. It's 7 through 9. It's hard to keep track.
You got it.
I honestly didn't think it could live up to those expectations. I was optimistic. I still think they landed the plane. And as we walked into literally Rogue One, Johnny Sims, overall, what do you think of these specific like last 3 episodes? Did they land the plane, as well as you imagined?
Yeah, they definitely did. I mean, episode 10 was just yet another small cat and mouse game in the middle or towards the end of the largest cat and mouse game in the history of the galaxy. I thought Luthen's end was just so very fitting. As you said, he burnt his life for a sunrise that he'll never see. And, just down to his final moments, all he was doing, everything he dedicated his entire life and his death to was for the rebellion, willing to kill himself so that they could not torture him to get that information out of him. And just the way that this show creates tension is unlike anything we've seen in Star Wars, maybe ever. It's just they build up these moments where you genuinely, they're gonna get out of it, but you don't know how. I also thought these final few episodes did an incredible job of building up Krennic's character, because after rewatching Rogue One, he kind of seems like a sniveling, like a typical like Imperial boss. In episode 11, when he's interrogating Dedra, he is terrifying. Like he's really like yeah. Like it really built up and made it more believable that he would be one of the top dogs in the Empire. And then what was impressive to me with episode 12 was there's like maybe 3 minutes of action in the entire episode, but it's still just put such a great, gritty little bow on this 2-season cat and mouse game. And when I was watching it the whole time, I felt like the meme of Scorsese of just absolute cinema. Exactly. And I loved it. I loved every second of it.
Flix, what did you think of these last 3 episodes? In your opinion, did they land the plane? Did it even live up to, the last 3 batch of episodes?
It definitely landed the plane, because I think a big point of the show was leading up to Rogue One, right? And these last 3 episodes were like the final 3 days before Rogue One or whatever it is, right? Days before Rogue One, let's say. And it did a great job getting to that point and playing that cat and mouse game. I like that, how you describe it, John. I do like, I thought I did well with that, with the tension building and whatnot. And episode 10 was amazing, in my opinion, my favorite out of the batch here. And it didn't even have the titular character. Andor wasn't even in it. And that shows how electric Luthen was as a character. Probably my favorite character in this series, more than Andor, even though Cassian, by the end, I became to really like him. He's one of my favorite Star Wars characters of all time, probably now. But Luthen, holy crap, this guy, amazing character. And seeing that little backstory, I was kind of hoping, because like they did the flashback, and I was like, man, like they're doing the CGI, but could they have gotten Alexander Skarsgård for this? I kind of was rooting for that because I'm a big Skarsgård guy, but oh no, I think it worked very well. And I just loved episode 10. And I think it does rival episodes 8 and 9. But I feel like after 10, I thought 11 and 12 were very good. But I feel like the build up to the Gorman Massacre, we spent so much time building up to that. I think those are still like the peak of this season. But episode 10 is right there.
Episode 8 is my number 1, but episode 10 is my number 2 for the season. And I mean, we're talking, people are always saying, like, or when I watch social media and I listen to podcasts, read articles and blogs, they're like, Cassian Andor, is he like a top 5 Star Wars character? Bro, I think he's like the second best character in the show. Like, I think Luthen is a better character than Cassian. And a huge thing with these last 3 episodes, like the 11 and 12, slower pace, like you can't reach the highs of episode 8. Like that's in terms of action. You get it's few and far between for Andor, but that was top tier. But Luthen, I was like, how are they going to close out this character? And they did it so well, man. Like it wasn't like a ceremonious death. Like it's like a failed suicide in front of Dedra, and he gets taken to this hospital wing. But you have this amazing opportunity to show him as like a mentor to Clea. and them to just like Tony Gilroy. I'm just going to tell you all about Clea in this episode, and you're going to have it like a character that you know nothing about. And this is going to be your second favorite episode, of the entire season. But to him, for Luthen to have like basically foreshadowing his whole death, for the entire series. Like John brought up the famous monologue where he's like, I burned my life for a sunrise I'll never see. It's one of the greatest bars in the history of Star Wars. So for a series and a franchise that's known for having some of the best lines, most quotable lines, that is absolutely fire. For him to like kind of say, he's going to die. And then to have those like build-up episodes with the Mon Mothma, where basically he's saying, if you get captured, we're going to have to kill you, where Cassian, does and executes the plan. That once he has that failed suicide, it's like he's still going to die, and to have Clea have an understanding of the rebellion, it was almost like a father-daughter relationship, but it's almost like you just devoid any of the emotion. It is sad. And she's like, I have to do this. And it hurts me to do this, but I know what this man has taught me since I was like 7 years old. I just think it was great foreshadowing. That was what they had to do in order to make this land the plane and have it like seamlessly fit into Rogue One. Just like Rogue One fit into episode 4. But they landed the plane with Luthen there. Johnny Sims, looking at Clea and Luthen and their relationship there. What do you think about the scenes that they had, her kind of being saved on that planet, and then also the terrible things that she was seeing, Luthen being the mentor? What do you think of their relationship?
I thought it was so well done. We saw the literal very moment that the rebellion started. And I did not see coming that Luthen was a former, early days Imperial soldier. And it's like, he wasn't like special forces. He wasn't like whatever. He was like just a guy. And he just saw that what the Empire was doing was wrong. He saw a little bit of a spark, seeing a child that was like fighting to stay alive. And the combination of those two things made him decide that, hey, I'm going to do everything I can I'm going to dedicate my life to making sure that we stop doing this. So getting to see the dynamic between the two of them just added so much to that emotional end, where her entire life was the rebellion, right? Like her literal entire life from when she's 6 or 7 in that episode, all she's ever done is fought with Luthen. And then she has to be the one to pull the plug on him. It was just so emotionally just incredibly supercharged. And then her getting to Yavin, and it's very unceremonious, but she's largely the reason that all of that exists. So it just shows, they both just gave up literally everything that they had to get this rebellion going. And they obviously succeeded. And I thought Tony Gilroy just adding in those flashbacks, just fleshing out the characters even further up to the bitter end, just insanely well done.
Luthen, just an underrated recruiter of rebellious talent. He just sees people. It's like, Empire wronged you. You have some fire. We need you on the team. Clea, Cassian, you're right. They couldn't do it without Luthen. Clea also nervous to go to Yavin because you see how they look at Luthen, and she is tied hand to hand with Luthen. And to have those Mon Mothma, and you have Bail Organa and that whole round table, the leaders of the rebellion kind of dismissing Luthen. That was heartbreaking to see because this guy started everything, and to see how he's kind of looked at as a crackpot or someone who can't be trusted. It's like, damn, it kind of showed you how the time frame, the time span, it's been years now from Luthen being really tight with the rebellious group. And as they got bigger, he kind of fades away a little bit, But Ricky Flix, what do you think of their relationship?
No, yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. And I just want to harp again, in episode 10, how hard it is to write in a flashback episode seamlessly, right? It is we literally have a whole show that's a flashback in Andor, right? It's a prequel, right? Mm-hmm. It's because we need the time and the depth and the tension, the building blocks to get to a Rogue One, right? And we're kind of breaking it down. That's why we see a lot where you have flashback scenes in shows or movies. It's hard to write in. It really is. But here he does it where it's a back and forth between present day and Clea getting to the eventual death of, or murder or whatever, killing off Luthen. But Gilroy was able to bounce back and forth pretty seamlessly, so it could build up with the tension, and you're building up to that final walk to Clea taking down a couple stormtroopers and into that final room in the hospital. And it again, like, it is so hard to do that. And he did it not just through this one episode, right? But he did it in episode 10. Like, not episode 1 or 2. He did it late stage, second season, this flashback. Like, that's so hard to do. So that's, like, honestly, like, one of the more impressive feats, I think, looking back on it, just from a technical standpoint of the show.
Yeah. Like the flashback scenes, like when there's the slaughtering on the planet and young Clay is watching, and Luthen basically says to her, "I'm leaving," and basically with or without you. And then she chooses to stay and watch. Like, she's still like emotionally invested, and she has this anger built towards the Empire. And Luthen just walks away from like a 10-year-old Clea. I'm like, oh my God. Like, the coldness of Luthen in these flashback sequences, that's pretty amazing. It's like,
I will say,
Jesus
I think
Christ.
it was crazy how cold he was so quickly, because he couldn't take like the noise
10?
of the massacre or whatever going on whatever planet he was on, but he could, like, you know, be as cold as he was right afterwards with Clea.
Then they burn the bridge. He's like, watch me. Don't look over there. He burns it. It's just like, you can't be emotional about this stuff. You just got to get the job done. And I didn't know. I don't know if you can answer this, Sims. When he was talking to young Clea, saying like, don't, like, look at me. Is he telling her like, watch my reaction to this, or don't draw attention? I didn't know what he meant necessarily when he said. I felt like could have been a couple things he meant when he said that.
I think it was a bit of both. I think they didn't want to give like anyone around any sort of inkling that they knew that it was going to happen. And I think partially also maybe trying to protect her a little bit from seeing like the actual literal damage that they're doing. Even if it might be nice to see, you know, some Imperial soldiers get blown up, she is still like a 10, 12-year-old girl by this point. So I think he did want to protect her from the pure, the necessary evil of what they do, if you will.
Thinking also about Luthen, and this is why I think the writing's so good, because I thought when I watched Rogue One, it's not like you're thinking, how does no one mention Luthen? Because obviously the show's made afterwards, but it's a prequel. But even the people on Yavin don't think that highly of Luthen. You know, only Cassian does. And Cassian, going on the steps of Rogue One, he's going and taking off in that first scene of Rogue One, or his first scene, like right after, right, the ending of Andor. I think the way they wrote how Luthen is remembered is good, because it explains why he's not mentioned much in Rogue One, or at all, I should say. You know, I think the writing, it seems so like perfect, you know, for these characters. And it makes it, like I said, it's like a puzzle that Gilroy has. And he's like, we got to make sure that he's not looked at as like a hero of this rebellion, because he's going to be naturally someone that they should mention in Rogue One. I just thought it was amazingly done. But do you guys have any other thoughts, Ricky Flex, on Luthen and his, you know, his end here?
Our boy Lonnie, brutal, tough ending for him, huh? Man, like everything he's done, and I know he's like a little bit annoying, but he's kind of like a huge part. Like, he is a huge part of this, and to go out like that, I felt bad for that guy.
The building of tension, like Johnny Sims was talking about, one of the best scenes this season is him with Clea when they are trying to remove like the bugged pieces of art, and then you have like Krennic like right there, and that is one of the best scenes. Talk about tension, Sims.
Yeah. No, that scene was like, when I say like the tension, that is one of like the peak scenes. Like, her hand starts bleeding. She can't get the whole rebellion could fail if she doesn't get this out. The leader of the Empire is right there, and you're using an Imperial soldier to block you. It's just like, it's Tony Gilroy was just in his bag when he came up with these scenes.
Yeah, such a good scene. And talking about other ends of arcs for these characters, Deidre basically like she captures Axis, you know, she gets Luthen, and he tries to, you know, commit suicide in front of her. They may not get the information. She ends up getting imprisoned. I just thought, like, it is a tragic story. It's a definition of a tragic arc that also Gilroy bag, you know, he's doing his thing. But seeing Deidre in prison, it is tragic, but I was like, bitch got what she deserved, dude. I needed her and her smug face in one of those white jumpsuits. I needed her to fall and her ambition get the best of her. I think it's like the perfect tragic arc, but also showing like even the Empire. We talked about the spectrum of good and evil. Like the Empire, like as someone as evil as Dedra was and was like so like obsessed with rising the ranks, even she can be, imprisoned, by the Empire. But Dedra, guys, is this like a perfect ending for her, Flex?
Yeah, I would say so. Like Cyril, I thought it was a great ending with him. And I think that was like the perfect ending. Particularly with that character. And like this one was pretty damn close to like, because you can't just like kill her off just to kill her off. I think this one, like confining her by the Empire where she fought so hard for, right? You get so committed to and overcommitted, but to herself, really, selfishness and greediness of that potential of career aspirations, right? And speaking of Krennic and her, that scene, unreal scene with the finger point, right, on her head. But rewatching Rogue One and like Vader's like, Tarkin's like, you've made so many mistakes. Looking back, like watching Rogue One after Andor, the end of Andor season 2, I'm like, yeah, he has made so many mistakes. It is insane, and it's because mainly of Dedra.
Yeah, Sims.
I was gonna say, this is where I thought you were going with that, Flix, of bringing up Rogue One. What is it that Dedra did? She choked on her own aspirations. Vader told Krennic not to do. She was so obsessed with rising the ranks, getting the glory, being the one to get the credit for everything, that she fucked the whole thing up. She had Luthen dead to rights, and instead she wanted to go in and personally talk to him and give him, the Imperial Star Destroyer device. And she wanted to get the credit. She wanted to be the one to nab him when they could have just sent in 50 guys and just handcuffed him, didn't even give him the opportunity to kill himself, and then trapped him and tortured him and got all the information, and that would have been that. But in the end, I think she did get what was coming to her. And we see a lot in these final few episodes. It's a huge theme of the Empire. They do not reward their loyal. They just use them. And she is another perfect example. They used her. They got all they needed out of her. And then as soon as she stopped being useful, off to prison for the rest of your life. There you go.
They build you up just to tear you down, and when you had the basically Dedra Jr. that was in this episode, excellently cast, excellently performed. He annoyed the shit out of me. Like, I'm like, this guy sucks. This guy sucks. And I thought it's like, and he's the one who's like, I need to take out Dedra, and where do I go above Dedra? And that guy, something bad's gonna happen to that guy. It's just the circle of life in Star Wars, dude.
And then and then Officer Sheard, I believe you're referring to. Even his ending, he gets killed by an Imperial droid, uses a body shield, and shot by an Imperial blaster. Like, it's the most literal, like, Empire eating its own tail.
And that Krennic scene though with Dedra, just to kind of finalize this Dedra conversation. This is like the most imposing that we get Krennic. I know Rogue One, that first scene, which happens, way before the events of Andor, or at least maybe during the beginning of the events of like season 1 of Andor. I'm not sure of exactly the time frame, but that's like the most imposing he is. But then when he has Dedra interrogating and he does the improvisational like finger on the head, like naughty girl type of moment, like you are fucked, type of thing. That was needed. That was like, the show doesn't include a lot of, Easter eggs in terms of major characters appearing. It's not even an Easter egg. It's like Rogue One gives you Darth Vader. That was the equivalent for Andor. It's like, that's your Darth Vader moment. Here's Director Krennic in the most menacing he's ever been, because how you know him in Rogue One, he's kind of a screw up. He's the guy who is like reminiscent of Dedra, rising the ranks, wants to get the attention of Palpatine, gets in over his britches a little bit with the building of the Death Star and having that all go to shit. It's the same type of thing. But to have that for Ben Mendelsohn, so if you have him in your show, you got to let him cook. And they just let him do his thing. And I was like, thank God. But that's how like the show is like so niche. That is your Darth Vader moment. It's Director Krennic and in that interrogation room.
And rewatching Rogue One and like the choke on your aspiration scene, he's on his hands and knees there, like trying to gasp for breath. And something to go along with like Dedra, Cyril, and himself, like always trying to rise the ranks and selfishly making mistakes along the way as they try to climb the ladder, the corporate ladder, so to speak. And even after gasping for breath, and after, like, again, he said, "Am I still in charge?" or whatever, right before that. And then even after he almost died with Vader choking him out, he has that little look and smirk afterwards, after getting choked out by Vader. I'm like, you freaking dirty dog. You just love being in command.
You sick puppy.
Yeah. Like, this is effed up.
He
Like,
loves
he's like, oh, I only had to take a little choke from Vader and I get to stay in command. Who's up for round 2? Like, insane.
He's like, I got choked by Vader and I lived to tell the tale. Like, how many guys get to get choked out by Vader? That's like the way he's looking at it.
And he had a sick quote in episode 11 when he's in the conference room with like the guy taking over for Deidre Hurt or whatever, and then the leader starts with a P. I forget his name, Pau Gas or something like that. Yeah, thank you. The guy killed himself. He's talking about Clea. He's like, we need to find her. Say it's a disease, and she must be found before thousands die. I'm like, brother, in a few days, you're about to try to commit a genocide, multiple genocides on millions of people. Hilarious quote.
When they drop also in the interrogation scene after he says, like, I want you to say it. And then we're all like, every Star Wars fan's like, say it. And then she's like, Death Star.
Yeah.
Let's go.
That scene also, and I think these final few episodes really added to just how like terrifying the Death Star is and how significant it is to the Star Wars universe. Like a giant fascist regime effectively creating a literal planet killer, super top secret information that they've been doing for the last 10 years. And then you finally see it. And it's like, it's actually like legitimately terrifying. Whereas in the New Hope, we see it, obviously it blows up a planet, but it doesn't feel nearly as like significant or as threatening as it's built up throughout Andor.
Yeah, they started to really, they laid the boom, and then everyone is like, we can't believe this information. Like, this is too big to be true. Like, how could this have been happening underneath our noses, for this long, and just Krennic full crash out that spills into Rogue One once again, to see like him go from like kind of a commanding presence into one that's kind of like all over the place and shuffling and trying to get his ducks in a row. Once it leads really well into Rogue One. I also want to give a shout out to K2SO. This also, I already thought it goes R2D2 and then K2SO. Those are like, no one's going to surpass R2. He's been through too much. He's too adorable. He has been alongside the Skywalkers for too long to ever be surpassed. He is cemented. It's like Jordan as the #1 basketball player. That is R2. But K2SO, this guy, watching Rogue One, I was devastated by his death. The funniest droid, I would say. R2 is very funny, but doesn't actually speak, to have him be kind of like, they take some of the, like him throwing stormtroopers in Rogue One, and they just said, we're going to make that his go-to move in Andor. And he is tossing people. He's killing them so easily. And to have him be like also kind of a, part of this rebellion, because he was a part of the Empire. He switched to like, the rebellion. I thought, once again, you're deepening these characters. I already loved K2, but just wanted to give him a special shout out.
Yeah, I thought we were going to have a conversation, Doc, about K2SO, because I know you're a big BB-8 guy. I know that was a big point of contention last season between me and you. But holy crap, does K2SO blow him out of the water as a character? Holy crap, dude. K2SO, like, best free agent pickup of Star Wars history. Like, insane pickup. Literally in episode 12, they are waiting in on Coruscant, the hideout apartment, for him to save the day, to come save them. Right? He is insane. And then rewatching Rogue One, holy crap. Like, I liked him in Rogue One back in 2016 watching him, but now, like, after seeing the backstory here, I'm like, holy crap. Like, yeah, I felt something when he was dying. I felt something.
Is he the funniest character in the history of Star Wars?
Ooh.
Probably.
Might be.
Like, he's not even annoying when he's funny. Like in Rogue One, where you have Jyn Erso when they're on Jeddah, when she shoots the Empirical droid, and then you have K2 come out of the corner. She's like, did you think that was me? I'm like, this guy's hilarious right now.
Yeah.
And basically, I believe in you. At the end, he's like, I'll join you. Cassian told me to, type of say that.
No,
But
K2SO deserves a segment here, and I'm glad we're talking because he is an all-time like droid. He might be the number 2 droid.
Sims, are you down to do a ranking right now of droids? Top 5 droids?
Yeah.
Okay, so Sims, you're down for R2 at number 1.
Yes.
Would you be opposed to having K2SO at number 2?
I think this might be controversial. I think it's a tie for me at number 2 between K2SO and Chopper from Ahsoka and Rebels. Only because he was a lot better in Rebels. He was so useful, and even though like he doesn't speak, like he doesn't say actual words, but the way that he kind of beeps sounds like words. So he kind of like talks in a way throughout Rebels, and I thought like he was hilarious in that show and had great utility. But it's K2 did raise the bar. I think Chopper kind of matches it, but. I'd say they slot in. They take up the 2A and 2B slots for me.
Ricky, are you a Chopper guy? I don't even know because I haven't watched the show.
I get the Rebels
this conversation before though. Some people put him at 1.
Yeah, no, I'm a K2SO guy because I always favor live action movies over the shows, but I'm not as big of a show guy as like Johnny Sims here. So I understand. But then like. If we just say those are 2 and 3, we could decide whatever. I think BB-8 then slides in at 4.
Okay, so timeout. There's so much disrespect to 3PO. Like,
so are we doing
3PO, like he's a part of the most iconic moments in Star Wars. He is next to R2. Like for so much of this, he's not as big of a impact player as R2, but he's doing some important stuff out there. We tried to give him an arc, like in whatever the Rise of Skywalker. Yeah, we tried to do that for him, but I feel like we cannot not have 3PO in the top 5.
I thought I was always saying BB-8 because you're such a BB-8 stan. I
need this narrative off this podcast.
All right, yeah.
If
all right.
Say I'm a BB-8 guy again, I'm gonna log off.
All right, 3PO 4.
Because I'm more of a B2 guy than BB-8.
B2.
John,
thoughts?
Yes, I love B2. B2, he's like, to me, B2 is like the cutest droid. Like, just the way that he talks, he's so adorable. He feels like just a little kid that's following everybody around in season 1.
Is that going to be our 5?
Yes.
I think so.
I voted
for B2
I think so.
over like BB-8?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Because BB-8 is R2 Jr. It's just R2 Jr. That's all it is, and R2 comes back and kind of steals the thunder from BB-8. So.
Okay, fine. Then are we doing Chopper at 2 or Chopper at 3?
Well, I feel like, no disrespect to Sims, but we have to put him at 3.
Yeah.
Because we're 2-1. We're K2 at number 2.
Fair. That's fair.
All right. So R2, K2SO, Chopper, C3PO.
B2 Emo.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's great.
Stutter, man.
BB-8 snub, dude.
That's gonna be something.
Is there anybody else we're missing?
I mean, other people that appeared in like video games, like HK-47 and Assassin Droid, but we don't got to get into that.
Yeah.
You're getting in the weeds.
Yeah, no.
Okay, cool. So there's our droid conversation. We're going to continue it when we eventually talk about Rogue One. I do want to talk about the ending for the finale, not just walking into Rogue One, but also the last shot of Andor is Cassian taking off, and you have the classic looking into the sky shot. And who is it? Bix, who is holding Cassian and her's child. Sims, what do you think about this being the last shot of the series?
I loved it, and I thought it was incredibly fitting. We see Cassian for 2 seasons fighting, grinding, doing everything that he possibly can for the rebellion and for the greater good of the galaxy. But at the end of the day, Bix is who he cared the most about. And now a child that I don't believe he even knows about, to him, he was dying and doing everything that he could for their sunrise that they would never get to see. So again, very fitting that they had the stereotypical Star Wars staring off into the sun. But I thought it was a very fitting final shots for the show.
Did it work for you, Flix?
I think so. My only pushback against it is this show is, we always knew it was leading up to Rogue One, like literally right into the days of Rogue One. And we always, like, right when it started, we knew the ending, right? And it always felt constrained, right? And like, not constrained in a bad way. Like, just like we always knew the ending, like the end of the book, right? And he didn't, like, Tony Gilroy obviously put his touches on it, took his liberties and whatnot, but always within those confines. And the whole show's purpose felt like, I don't know, just like Rogue One, it was the focus. And I'm fine with it. And I guess I'm just doing a little bit of pushback here, because like this whole show, like with the potential child, kind of sets up like, hey, you could do a spin-off Andor type of thing. But this whole show's point was against that. So I guess like the Bix point of view, I'm like, that's good, the sunrise and whatnot. But the child, I was like, man, is he doing this because maybe down the road we could do an Andor kid spinoff? That's honestly what was going through my mind for a second.
No,
and, like, keeping the door open for a potential future series. And I kind of rolled my eyes a little bit. So like the Bix part, I like. The kid part, I was like, did we need to do that?
So when the Resistance comes about, you know, going into episode 7, we have Andor, you know, season 3. Right? Like, is that what you're kind of thinking? I don't think that's what he was really. I wasn't going through my
why
mind.
have the kid there? Just like say emotional touch?
I would say like it's the people that you're doing it for, the freedom that you're fighting for, even whether you know them or not, you know, giving them a future, and to kind of check in with Bix. It's like we had Bix marked for dead after she's, you know, hopped up on drugs and she can't sleep and she's a threat to the rebellion. Like Luthen's going to visit her. I think Gilroy did a good job of giving us different types of endings for these characters, and you know how much this person means to Cassian. So this is where one thing we're going to talk about going into Rogue One, where you have Jyn Erso, and there's some type of connection between Jyn Erso and Cassian. Like, and then you show Bix as the last shot of this series. That's what kind of like made me think twice, where I get why you're doing it, the hope you're instilling, but Cassian is about to like make this connection with this other woman, you know. That's the only thing I was rubbing up to me.
And we'll talk about Rogue One with Jyn Erso and some of the looks that they were doing with each other, some of those eyes. But my last point here is a reason I also liked the Bix and kids storyline. I know I just pushed back a little bit, but one reason I liked it is because when Bix leaves Cassian saying you have to do this for the rebellion, like I can't be in your way, it's also like, oh, she was pregnant. You know, and that's a good excuse for her to be safe and go to a different planet and kind of just be siloed. And I think that's a good reason, because I think some people online were like, oh, she could have stayed. She could have. Well, if she's pregnant and around this environment and Yavin, this rebellion, that's not good for any pregnant woman. I think that's honestly a pretty good take of why maybe she had to leave for the safety of the child.
If Cassian knew she was pregnant, there's no way he would keep fighting in the rebellion. And then they have the Force healer that is basically telling him, like, you are the chosen one for the rebellion. It's like she has to leave, because if she stays around and she's pregnant, Cassian's never going to put his life on the line for the rebellion, you know? And he already was saying that he wouldn't do that for, like, Bix, let alone if she's pregnant with his child. So I think in terms of writing, too, once again, putting a bow on it a little bit, I think that was smart, Sims.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think you guys all, you know, make great points with that. And, you know, like you're saying, Flix, her being pregnant gives that justification for why she would have to get out of there. So
smart. And as we wrap, we talked about it. I said Luthen is my favorite character in the show, and Cassian still was awesome. I think season 2 was great for Diego Luna and what he did with the character. And I think he firmly established himself. I know Sims, what Ricky Flix and I were talking about, like I was kind of critical of the first season, where it's like, it's more like an ensemble to me. It's less about like Cassian being the core of the story, like everything's central to him. It's more about like a show. Maybe it should have been titled something else. It's more about the early stages of the rebellion. I think this season it locked in on Cassian. And obviously, I just talked about the Force healer, seeing something in him, Bix recognizing his importance, Luthen always giving the most important missions to Cassian. Do you think, in your opinion, he's one of the greatest Star Wars characters? If I know it's hard to rank, it's almost too long of a thing to do, but like, would you put him in like your top 10 of favorite Star Wars characters, or potentially top 5?
I would say definitely. And the crazy thing is, like, if you ask me that question after Rogue One, I'm like, no way in hell. Who gives a shit about this guy? Like, yeah, he played an important role in Rogue One, and it is what it is.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service, Andy.
Yeah. I think it, and I know we'll be getting into Rogue One shortly, but I think it kind of, one of the things I was going to say is it's clear that, like, the character was way more fleshed out for Andor, and it kind of felt like in the last couple episodes he was, I don't know, neutered a bit so that they could kind of get him closer to how he is in Rogue One. But throughout the entirety of the show, he's just this badass that is willing to take whatever risks. He's willing to kill who he has to kill, do what he has to do for the sake of the rebellion, and obviously wouldn't have made it this far without him. So I think the show did firmly cement him easily as a top 10 character. I don't know about top 5, but top 10 is safe to say.
Cemented top 10. Ricky Flex, your thoughts?
I think he's fighting for top 10. I think I'd put him in there. I think barely. Like, but obviously non-Jedi or Force users, like, he's a top 5 character in my opinion. You know, like I would still put, like, off the top of my head, like Han over him, R2. I think I would still put R2 over him just for importance. I'm trying to think non-Force users. Chewbacca, Chewie. I think I was still above him.
We can do that. We can do non-Force users right now. That's
like
easy.
I think those 3 are still above him, but then everyone else is fighting. Like, hey, I think he might be above Leia. Like, I know it's crazy to say.
No.
But that's
not above Leia.
I know. That's what I mean, though. Like, Johnny Sims is saying he's easily in the top 10. I just gave you 4 non-Force users that are in the top 10, maybe then.
I will say, because when you watch Rogue One and pretend Andor didn't exist, the first time you saw Rogue One, like, I wasn't thinking that Cassian Andor, like, made that movie. I didn't think that he was my favorite character. I thought he was cool in it. And I think I have more of an appreciation when I watch it now, obviously, following Andor. But the thing is, like, when you have characters like Leia, like, who is Force sensitive, by the way, so she wouldn't even make this list. But these characters have been great in multiple projects, and they're, like, some of the best parts of every movie they appear in. Like, I feel like Andor makes us appreciate Cassian more because, you know, obviously, like John was saying, it's fleshed out and everything. But because I didn't think about that initially, and it's more of a credit to, like, Tony Gilroy, I guess, than it is the performance, I wouldn't put him top 5. I would say borderline top 10, you know? But do you guys want to do that right now? We can go non-Force users, Star Wars characters, non-droids. I guess humans.
Humans. Well, that means Chewbacca's not it.
Not humans. You know what I mean. Like, no droids, no Force users or Force sensitive people.
So Han, Chewie.
He's top 5 easily for this.
Yeah, right. Cassian. Like, Boba Fett is down the list now after Boba Fett, the book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, Boba Fett took a hit, Sims.
Yeah, definitely. You know, he, like, in the original trilogy, like, he doesn't do a whole lot. He's, like, kind of barely even in it, and then people just thought he was cool, kind of like a cult figure, and then they bring him back, give him a show, and it's like the worst fucking thing we've ever seen in the history of Star Wars.
Just disgusting. Disgusting. That was an absolute disgrace to Star Wars, and disgrace to the character. That show was in production for a long time, or development. It was going to be a movie first and everything before, like, everything happened with Disney Plus. But it's amazing that through this, like, short conversation on non-Force users, no one has talked about Din Djarin. No one has talked about The Mandalorian. Like, that is amazing. This guy has a movie coming out next year. Like, that is not a good sign for a character that's getting a movie.
That's a good point.
Well, all right, fine. If we want to really do this, Han, Chewie. I'm trying to think of other ones like
Lando?
Andor.
If we're doing,
you could do Luthen.
I would be on board for Luthen.
Yeah, if we're doing, like, everything, like, all Star Wars, like, if we're including, like, the animated shows, like
Thrawn.
I don't know. I would definitely put, like, I'm putting Ezra in the top 10. No, he's
Whoa.
No. Ignore me. Ignore me on Ezra. I'm trying to think who else.
Well,
Captain
I'm
Rex.
trying to think. Animated Thrawn would be up there, right? Like who else from the animated? Not like Captain Rex. I don't think. I like no disrespect. I don't know.
Yeah. I think like having watched like the animated shows, like if we're doing the top 10, I think Captain Rex has to be in there.
Yeah, top 10, I guess. But like I'm thinking like top 5. Like I think Han, Chewie, and Andor are like locked in. Like and then the sequel trilogy, it's like Poe Dameron.
This is what I got. I made a list. I have number 1 Han Solo. I have number 2 Chewbacca. I have 3 Luthen. I have 4 Andor and 5 Lando Calrissian.
Oh, that's Lando. Forgot about Lando.
And then I left Boba Fett, Din Djarin off the list. That's mine, personal one. I just wanted to get something out there. It's like no one's gonna agree with mine because like people are gonna be like, "How the hell do you have Luthen up there?" I'm like, "Cause he's a badass and he's a cold ass mofo." That's why I got him, and he's like the most one of the most complex characters we've ever had in Star Wars.
John, what do you think here for top 5?
Dude, and do we say we're not including R2?
No droids.
No droids.
No droids. God, man, it's so tough. It's so tough. It's hard to argue against that, Doc. I mean, I could make an argument just because I am such a huge proponent of the animated shows having like a Captain Rex over Lando. I think Lando's on that kind of cusp for me. Wasn't too crazy about Solo.
Another guy that's getting a show, Lando.
Is he? Is he?
Apparently, it's on the list.
Oh my God.
All right, so
I kind of want to put Din Djarin in there though, because it's like the Mandalorian is a big deal.
I love Din Djarin. I think the problem is like season 3 was tough, but he is getting his own freaking movie.
Yeah.
I think maybe post movie we come back to this.
Fuck Poe Dameron, dude. Poe Dameron.
Yeah,
Poe Dameron's right there, man. I didn't even think about it. You said it, and I just went right at one ear out the other. I was so locked on my top 5. It's hard to put anyone above like Han, Chewie, Lando. Almost have to be in the top 5. You know, then it's just like
Lando's in there. Boba Fett's not.
Yeah, no Boba Fett.
No.
Hey, John, what do you think about Luthen over Cassian?
I like.
Yes, I know John and David Doc and I agree with this.
It might be yes, dude. Luthen is just like he has like some of the best monologues, some of the best quotes that we've ever seen. He is the rebellion. He's the one that made it all happen. Andor executed the missions, but he was the mastermind behind it all. And it was like here's the thing. Every single time Luthen is on the screen, he is dominating that screen. He is in his bag. Like it's just.
I'm giving this guy, by putting him in the top 5, I'm giving him the sunrise he'll never see right here. That's what I'm doing.
All right, so let's finalize this top 5 quick. Doc, is it where we're going with yours, or are we adding Captain Rex in there?
If it depends where you put him.
It would be at 5, right?
So Han, Chewie, Luthen, Andor, and then it's Lando or Captain Rex or Poe Dameron.
I can't co-sign on Poe Dameron personally.
Yeah, he was getting walked by Laura Dern in episode 8.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to throw Captain Rex in there? You're gonna put him over Land? Maybe you put him at a honorable mention, Captain Rex.
You're a big Lando guy, huh?
Lando Calrissian, dude. It's like he's a legendary character. Like,
but he's like Boba Fett pre-book of Boba Fett.
Like Boba Fett potentially could have made the top 5. Like the coolest characters, 100%. But like his stock took a hit. Like Lando didn't take a stock like a hit on the stock market following Solo.
Okay, all right. Honorable mention Captain Rex. We'll see after Lando where he lands.
We reserve the right to change this list. I'm saying it now. We reserve the right to adjust this list post podcast, and we can refine some details because we could definitely. This was like off the cuff. This is not on the document today. I'm throwing it at you guys. Thank you guys for being flexible, and open to this conversation.
You're welcome.
What does the future of Star Wars TV look like? And we're at a crossroads. Mandalorian and Grogu are getting a movie. Ahsoka season 2, I think, is actually filming right now. What is the future, Johnny Sims? Do we ask Tony Gilroy to do more, or like? What characters should we see? Should we go outside this Skywalker saga episodes 1 through 9? What do you think?
I'm I'm not going to say, well, you need to hand over the keys to the Star Wars universe to Tony Gilroy, right? Because obviously the formula for Andor cannot be replicated with every story. It may not be able to be replicated at all. It kind of was the perfect story, the perfect opportunity for him to execute that kind of dark cat and mouse vision that he'd had. I would love to see another episode with, or another series with these kind of dark, serious, grounded tones. To me, I hope for Disney, their biggest takeaway from Andor is that Star Wars is at its best when it is political. Star Wars always has been and always should be a political universe. Like seeing the inner workings of the ISB, seeing them plan false flag events so that they can destabilize a big location so that they can strip them of their minerals. Seeing these inner workings, the grounding, the beginning of the rebellion, and seeing just like character-centered shows, I think that needs to be the formula moving forward. Like Andor is a great show that happens to take place in the Star Wars universe, right? Like I think anybody can watch Andor and appreciate it. The rest of the shows that Disney has made, you kind of got to be a Star Wars fan to really appreciate them. And I hope that they see the success of Andor and try to steer away from the formula that they've been using in the past and kind of, adjust what they're doing moving forward.
Fire take. That's great. Ricky Flux, do you agree?
I agree with that. And I just looked up. I totally forgot that Lando is now going to be a movie. It's not even going to be a show anymore. So, yeah, I totally forgot about that one. But yeah, that's like, it's kind of weird because like Star Wars now, I totally agree with Johnny Sims, by the way. Like, I'm just going to pivot a little bit differently because I think he said it perfectly. It's weird because Star Wars, like, they've been doing all these shows, and again, hit or miss, mostly misses, I would say. Or just not living up to expectations, I would say. But they're kind of pivoting back to movies, right? It's far enough away from the sequel trilogy. They're getting back into it. They're doing the Simon Kinberg trilogy. They're doing the Mandalorian and Grogu. They're doing the New Jedi Order, right? God, and that's going to be the Daisy Ridley one, right? They're doing the James Mangold movie. They're doing the freaking Ryan Gosling movie, right? They're doing in Orlando. I just said they're doing all these movies now, right? They're going back to live action films, theatrical releases. So I didn't even mention Taika Waititi's movie. Like the future of the Star Wars shows, I don't even know what it is after Ahsoka. Like I really don't, because they're putting not just like time but resources into these movies, which all are going to have budgets because it's Star Wars, and a lot of these are in outer space of $200+ million. And I said, how many movies there? Like at least 5. So that's over $1 billion you're investing just in behind the scenes pre-marketing of these movies. They might not have a lot of time for shows. So I don't know, like post Andor, we're going to have Ahsoka season 2. But besides that, like they're going to have to really go back to the like inner workings here and see like what they should do. And I think just to kind of come back to what John was saying with a political type of show, that would help with a budget too, right? That would help with a smaller budget. You go back to that, doing what you're do best on a smaller budget too, as you're doing all these upcoming films that are going to have huge budgets, I think will help as well financially. So for the studio that's going to be investing over $1 billion and just coming off their best show that they've ever done that was more politically motivated, I think that's the balance you should be going for.
To kind of reevaluate TV shows is something I think that's currently happening at Star Wars. Sims, you brought up like you brought up Tony Gilroy, where it's like this kind of was just perfect, like within like him writing and being such a huge part of Rogue One, and then having such an understanding of the political aspect and finding that niche in the timeline where he can fit this story and tell something and deepen the lore of Star Wars. I don't want to shut the door on Gilroy. I think that after episode 8 and 9, I tweeted like hand the keys of Star Wars to Tony Gilroy, but I understand why you can't do that. Like this is a very adult show within the Star Wars world. I think what they should do, if they have like the Simon Kinberg thing, this trilogy that's supposed to be happening, I'm not sure if it's like really going to happen, events that are happening post episode 9, it almost gives more of an opportunity. If Gilroy wants to stay in the Star Wars world, you have more of an open landscape and you don't have to look more into like fitting pieces of a puzzle, but rather like growing this new lore potentially post episode 9. So for people that are like, hey, this is kind of like just a 1-time or 2-time thing. Like maybe he's so invested in Star Wars and like loves doing it this much and loves the world, he can kind of help carve out the future of Star Wars rather than just giving us a deeper understanding of it. I think that's an exciting prospect no one's talking about.
Yeah, and he's kept the door open, right? He hasn't closed the door, and I know he's promoting Andor right now. And after what happened in season 1, where they were just trying to get anybody to watch it, right? It was on live cable television. Like they were just trying to get anyone to watch it, and now like it's full. Everyone's fully invested. Everyone's after 4. I think the 4-year hiatus actually helped getting people like the build up of the build up to the season helped with that time lapse here. And now, like I mentioned, with all these movies coming out, and obviously for a studio, like that's going to be your focus of theatrical releases, that also will give Tony Gilroy like some leeway as well, and say, hey, like just continue to make some shows and just put your touch on it. Like you have the credibility now post. He had it before Andor, but now he has the credibility within the Star Wars universe that he's proven that he could do it. Now it's like, oh, this could be a time where it's like, hey, like Star Wars is so focused on these films. It's like, hey, just go to do whatever you want while we're doing this.
Sims, any other thoughts here? Future Star Wars TV.
Yeah, I mean, I think now that you're saying it, the idea of giving Tony Gilroy kind of a blank canvas to paint a picture on does sound pretty enticing. Just giving him just like a lot of, create a big lane for him, give him a lot of runway, and just kind of let him go wild and create a brand new story that fits into the new puzzle that they're trying to piece together for the Star Wars universe. Obviously, whatever he makes, I'm tuning in no matter what. No more protests. For Tony Gilroy gets an exception.
He could be the foundation for, the political aspect of the next trilogy of Star Wars movies. And that's got to be pretty exciting.